marvellous Andrea Bocelli is amongst the stars of the South Bank Show Awards in 10 minutes here on ITV1. That's after the news from John Suchet.
World waits for inspector's report as America warns again.
We will not shrink from war.
The tube that crashed, why was it given the all clear? And misery for the fans as the hammers are nailed.
The ITV Weekend News with John Suchet.
Good evening. On the eve of the crucial report about Iraq's weapons program, America warned Saddam Hussein again tonight that it wouldn't shrink from war and it was prepared to go it alone if necessary. Tomorrow, the chief United Nations weapons inspector Hans Blix will tell the world what he has or hasn't found after 2 months' work in Iraq. Today, Iraq's Deputy Prime Minister said if there was a conflict, his people would fight to the end and America would lose. Kevin Dunn reports.
President Bush and his family were attending church today as his normally dovish Secretary of State issued the bluntest warning so far that the United States was prepared to go it alone to disarm Saddam Hussein.
The United States believes that time is running out. We will not shrink from war if that is the only way to rid Iraq of its weapons of mass destruction.
Here, more than 1,000 anti-war demonstrators marched to an RAF base where American stealth bombers will be stationed. But as they protested, the Prime Minister refused to rule out military action if Saddam fails to cooperate with the weapons inspectors.
If he cooperates fully with them in allowing them not just access, but telling them what material he has and allowing them then to shut it down and make Iraq safe and free of weapons of mass destruction, chemical, biological, potentially nuclear, then the issue's over.
This will be a key week in determining whether war is likely. Tomorrow, the Chief Weapons Inspector Hans Blix will deliver his report to the Security Council. On Tuesday, President Bush will make his State of the Union address to Congress. And on Friday, he will play host to Tony Blair at a Camp David summit some commentators are calling a Council of War. Iraq's leaders, however, are pledging to fight to the death if attacked.
We will fight the Americans courageously and effectively. This is our homeland. We know each and every inch in it. And therefore we will fight them very capably. And they will lose in such a conflict.
So tonight the world is waiting on the word of the weapons inspectors. Kevin Dunn, ITV News.
And we go now to Robert Moore in Washington. Robert, the world waiting for that report. Are there any early clues as to what's in it?
I think there are. I think the early indications, John, are that Hans Blix's report card tomorrow to the UN Security Council will be a very mixed one. He's likely to say that Iraq is giving superficial, passive cooperation to his inspectors, but he will also point out that Iraq has not adequately explained key components of its weapons programs. In particular, he will say Iraq is still in denial about the possession of weapons of mass destruction. So, John, if you like, there'll be support there for both sides of the argument. America and Britain will say there is evidence that Iraq is not voluntarily disarming. The French and the Russians will say the inspectors are there on the ground making a difference and should be allowed to continue their work.
Given that, are we any closer to knowing when an attack might take place?
I don't think an attack is imminent in the sense of the next few days. I believe President Bush and the White House will give the UN another 3 or 4 weeks. It'll also allow the White House to try and mobilize US and overseas opinion for a war, as well as try and get that coalition of the willing, as the Americans call it, together to try and topple Saddam Hussein. It certainly pleases the Pentagon that, because they say they need at least another month to get all the forces in place in the Persian Gulf to topple the regime of Saddam Hussein.
Right, thank you, Robert. Here, the tube which crashed on the London Underground yesterday had been given the all clear in safety checks just 2 days before. The company admitted today that a problem with the train's motor may have been to blame, and it was about to be halted just before the accident. The line is staying closed while 80 other trains are checked. Lauren Taylor reports.
The first pictures of the derailed train taken by the fire brigade show the doors ripped off by the impact with the tunnel wall and broken windows which showered glass over the 800 passengers who'd been on board. Remarkably though, the carriages show little damage. Accident investigators spent the day examining the crash site. London Underground now say problems with a motor may have been the cause, a view shared by the unions.
And we understand that when our representatives went there yesterday, that underneath the train that the motor is hanging off. So it's looking like that there was a clear mechanical fault, and it probably bears what we've been saying, that's a bolt sheared off or some other mechanical fault with the motor.
The union has also claimed that before the accident the driver of the train reported a fault but was told to carry on. I put that suggestion to London Underground bosses.
Our rules and procedures are quite clear that if a train driver feels that a train is unsafe in any way, they have the absolute authority to not move that train forward or take that train into passenger service.
This crash raises serious questions about the safety of trains which carry 500,000 passengers on the Central Line every day. There is a known fault with the train's motors, which means they're inspected every 5 days. But the train which crashed had been checked 2 days before and no faults were found. All 85 Central Line trains are out of service while safety checks are carried out. London Underground say they'll look at how often trains are inspected as part of their investigation. As to moving the train from here, one problem engineers will face is that old asbestos which had been sealed over could be disturbed in the process. So they'll have to wear protective gear and test the air down there afterwards. Lauren Taylor, ITV News, Central London.
One of the men arrested in the raid on a mosque in North London last week has been charged under the Terrorism Act. He was one of 7 men arrested when police raided the mosque in Finsbury Park. 29-year-old Samir Asli from North Africa is accused of possessing articles for terrorist purposes. He'll appear in court tomorrow. And the Prime Minister said today that he would push for tougher restrictions on asylum seekers if the number of people coming to Britain didn't go down. He admitted that the present numbers were unacceptable and said that if new laws didn't make any difference, he would consider a further clampdown. Football now, and West Ham suffered their worst ever FA Cup defeat today. They were beaten 6-0 by Manchester United. Shrewsbury's unlikely FA Cup adventure was ended when they were outclassed by Chelsea, losing 3-0. Alex Thomas watched the action.
West Ham are bottom of the Premiership and were looking forward to trying their luck in the Cup for a change. The feeling didn't last long. They were soon trailing Manchester United after an early goal from Ryan Giggs. Critics say the Welsh winger's past his best, but he was good enough to score twice today. There were also 2 goals for Ruud van Nistelrooy. A rare one for defender Phil Neville. And West Ham were eventually hit for 6 by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It was a disappointing day for Liverpool, held to a 0-0 draw at Crystal Palace, and their goalkeeper Chris Kirkland suffered a serious knee injury in an accidental collision. He was stretchered off to hospital and may miss the rest of the season. Third Division Shrewsbury Town had knocked Everton out in the last round, but they couldn't repeat that feat against Chelsea. Gianfranco Zola illustrated the difference in class with 2 goals, his first putting Chelsea 1 up at the break. Young striker Colton Cole came on for the second half and made an immediate impact, doubling Chelsea's lead. Zola's second was a touch of genius, and the fourth and final goal from Jody Morris even better. Alex Thomas, ITV News.
And the final score, Chelsea 4, Shrewsbury 0. That's it. Keep up throughout the night with the ITV News channel. For now, good night.
ITV National Weather, sponsored by PowerGen. PowerGen. Power in good hands.
Good evening now. Would you believe temperatures across Aberdeenshire today shot up to 18 Celsius, that's 64 in Fahrenheit. But it isn't going to last. Now, over the next few days, we're going to see that warm air draining away, the blue colours returning, indicating more typical January weather. And we will feel that on the temperatures tonight, for example. Temperatures not too bad at all, very mild, only lows of around 10. Although once we get in towards midweek, we're talking very much nighttime temperatures now down below freezing. Mild for the moment, certainly tomorrow across England and Wales. Very cloudy, a band of rain sinking south, but the first signs of that colder air in the northwest.
Power Gen. Power in good hands.